counselor for almost 30 years. So, practicing as a psychotherapist, I also founded, built, and sold a large mental health company and am the author of The Financial Mindset Fix. I blog about the psychology of money and behavioral finance for Forbes and also Psychology Today. And so, my intention today is to inspire you and to empower you to think about the psychology of money in a new and different way for you. I really believe that finances are similar to nutrition and exercise in that we all know what we're supposed to do, right? We're supposed to earn more than we spend and we're supposed to save and invest for the future. But it's our psychology that gets in the way and causes self-limitation and self-sabotage. And during these times of economic uncertainty, with rising gas prices and global conflict, et cetera, economic uncertainty is very stressful for people. So many of us are experiencing financial anxiety and money stress. So, my intention is for this presentation to give you some tools and strategies to think differently and manage your emotions differently related to money. So I have here, I'm going to pop this in the chat. This is a dedicated landing page that I created just for you, just for this talk. And it has copies of my slides. There are some downloadable links in the slides. And I also have a copy of my mini workbook, which is my gift to you. It's a downloadable PDF with some exercises you can do after today's presentation, as well as some other articles and resources. So you'll definitely want to click the link in the chat and bookmark that page so that you can refer to it later as you think about this presentation. So, why am I a psychotherapist talking about money? Well, I noticed something very interesting early on in my practice. I am from Chicago and I was practicing downtown, working with working professionals, dealing with a variety of issues that I think we all deal with at different points in our lives, whether it be stress, anxiety, depression, relationship issues, grief and loss, etc. And I noticed something really curious. As my clients started to make progress in therapy, they started to earn more money. And I really wanted to know why, because frankly, I was broke. I had 50,000 of student loans and was living paycheck to paycheck. So I was wondering, why am I treating depression and anxiety and mental health issues, and my clients are improving in their financial health and wellness? And after some reflection, I realized that it's because in therapy or counseling, we're always working on our underlying self-worth or self-esteem. And as we silence our inner saboteur and we embrace our unique gifts and talents in the world, we put ourselves out differently with more confidence, more assertiveness. We're willing to fail. Frankly, we're willing to expand our comfort zones and try new things, which sometimes involves failure, which is part of learning and moving forward. We also negotiate and advocate for ourselves financially. We set healthy financial boundaries when we care about ourselves. So self worth leads to net worth. Susie Orman, the best-selling author, said she found the same thing in her financial advising practice. She said self-worth leads to net worth, in that when we really have a solid sense of ourselves and healthy self-esteem, then we open up what is available to us. But she cautions it does not work the other way around. Money does not bring us worth. Of course, our worth is internal. So, the psychology of money, what are we talking about exactly? We're talking about those feelings of worthiness and deservingness for attracting financial peace and prosperity. We're also thinking about our thoughts about money. What are some of the beliefs that you learned in your family of origin, in your culture, in your religious teachings, or perhaps gender messages about your relationship to money? What about your beliefs about people who are very rich or people who are poor? How do those shape your behaviors and your emotions around money? We also want to think about our emotions around money. I know as a psychotherapist that many of us have a variety of issues around money. We might feel frustration, we might feel anger, we might feel pride or shame, we might feel fear. And those are all normal responses to uncertainty and financial stress and money anxiety. But we want to learn how to handle those in more adaptable ways so that we can have equanimity, which is mental calmness, so that we can choose to consciously respond rather than emotionally react. We also have our behaviors with money. What systems do we use? Are we organized? Do we use software to keep us informed and up to date? And do we have some impulsive or compulsive money behaviors that might be related to some unaddressed mental health issues? For example, if someone has ADHD, it might make it really difficult to organize your finances. Or if you're dealing with anxiety or low self-esteem, compulsive spending can be a way of feeling like you're in control and kind of filling yourself with material possessions. And that can lead to some financial harm. And then we each have our relationship with money. How do we behave with it? Are we spenders or are we savers or somewhere in between? And then we have our financial boundaries with others at home and at work. And that really affects our bottom line as well. So Jane helped me with the polls today, and unfortunately, we had a little tech challenge. And so it listed all of the poll questions as one big long poll with 5 questions. I'm going to launch it, but I'd only like you to complete question 1. Just leave 2 through 5 blank. So I'm launching the poll, and I want you to share with us, this is anonymous, what aspect of your psychology of money do you think you could benefit from improving? So go ahead and complete that, and it's multiple choice. If you think that there's more than one, please go ahead and share that. And so I'm seeing really across the board, interesting, the lowest one is thoughts or beliefs around money. And according to cognitive behavioral therapy, our thoughts precede our emotions and behaviors. So if we have negative or fear-based or catastrophic thoughts about money, then that's going to shape how we feel and how we behave. So thanks so much. You did that perfectly. I'm going to end the poll and share the results. So, really across the board, but a lot of you recognizing some behaviors with money, and with Amazon purchases being so easy, sometimes we need to make some changes, like deleting some apps and not having our phone near us when we're watching TV, and maybe having a glass of wine in the evening, or things like that. So, thank you so much for sharing that. It's really across the board. So I'm not sure if, oh, I guess it won't let me relaunch it. Let me just see. Okay, I'm going to relaunch it. And this is my second poll question. If you would go ahead and complete number 2, that would be great. So, and I'll explain what the question is. There are 4 money scripts according to research. The first one is money worship, which is the idea that money brings us happiness. The second one is money status, the idea that money brings us worth. So if we drive the right car, carry the right handbag, then somehow we are more worthy. There's also money avoidance, which I am a recovering money avoidant person. And that's when maybe money makes us anxious. And so we avoid looking at our finances, opening our bills. We don't meet with our financial advisor. We just don't even want to talk about money with others. And then finally, money vigilance is when you are financially conscious. You have a system, you have a budget, you meet regularly with your advisors, you know your net worth, you know your liabilities and you have a strategy for retirement. That is money vigilance. And no shame, no stigma. Our money script is a normal response to our earlier life experiences and messages that we've received around money. I present for people across industry, across the country, and I notice that in different industries, there's some different trends. For example, therapists and nurses and helping professionals are often money avoidant. People in sales were admittedly saying that they believed in money status, which is interesting because they're very motivated by commissions. And money vigilance, I present for a lot of CPAs and financial people and financial advisors, and they're commonly money vigilant. So thank you so much for completing that. I'm going to go ahead and share those results. Again, we're looking at number two, and it looks like a lot of you are money vigilant, which is absolutely fantastic. And some of you are money avoidant, which this is an opportunity for improvement. And for those of you who are money worship or money status, this is an opportunity for you to kind of look at your deeper internal worth and separate that from money and then develop some of the money vigilant characteristics. So thank you so much for sharing that. I would like to tell you my money story. My father was born during the Great Depression, and he lived in the inner city of Cleveland in a small apartment with multiple family members. His parents worked at a factory, and understandably, he had a scarcity mindset around money. The idea that there's not enough jobs or food or resources to go around. And right now, we're experiencing scarcity mindset as well during these times of economic uncertainty. So my dad really pulled himself up by his bootstraps, and he was the first person to go to college in his family. He actually got an MBA from Harvard and was a young executive at General Motors, one of the youngest division presidents ever. And so he was very successful financially. And then he lost his job when I was 8 years old. And during my adolescence, he was mostly unemployed during the automotive recession and dealt with depression and binge eating disorder. He had tremendous financial anxiety. And it was confusing because we lived in a nice house and had a nice lifestyle, but my parents thought about money all the time. And there was this idea that it was going to run out. So I believe as a therapist that we all unconsciously recreate our money story until we become aware and we choose something better. So I started my business with $500, 50,000 of student loans. I made 1,000 mistakes and ended up in cash flow hell. I was facing bankruptcy and couldn't pay my rent or my staff on time. So it mirrored my father's situation where on the outside it looked like, wow, I own this group practice and I'm on TV and things must be great. And in reality, I had $65 in my checking account and couldn't pay my bills. So enormously stressful. I had insomnia and panic attacks. And that led me to really doing my own inner work on my psychology of money and healing myself in my own counseling and therapy and applying tools from my clinical training to my relationship with money. And it transformed my life. Along with the help of many others, 7 years later, after facing bankruptcy, I was able to successfully sell my business for more money than I would have ever imagined in a lifetime. And I consider it my purpose and passion to help others shift their money mindset and do that inner work to welcome a life of holistic success and abundance. So there's this intrinsic relationship between mental health and financial health. So when we have financial stress and money problems, that can negatively impact our mental health. It can even lead to financially triggered PTSD. It can trigger and exacerbate anxiety and depression, substance misuse, and eating disorders. And then if we have untreated mental health conditions, like if we've untreated depression, that could impact our financial health because our confidence might be down, our motivation might be down, and we might not be as productive and we might not be going for that promotion. So it's intrinsic. So my book and program is really to help you heal your financial traumas and become conscious of your money script, your money story, and then take the reins and take action to create transformative change. So I mentioned money traumas, and I want you to look at this slide. These are some money traumas. So if you've experienced discrimination based on a financial discrimination based on a protected status, for example, women are still making 79 cents on the dollar as compared to men for the same role and responsibilities. And if you grew up in poverty or with a lack of resources, that is a financial trauma. If you've been through a long period of unemployment, or you had a business fail, or your parents did, or you've been through bankruptcy or foreclosure, those are all financial traumas. Divorce or breakups with financial consequences or unexpected healthcare expenses. I know my insurance went up dramatically this year. That can be traumatic and it can trigger money anxiety and other mental health conditions. I mentioned financial boundaries, and boundaries are the limits that we set with other people. You know, we have emotional boundaries, we have physical boundaries, we have sexual boundaries, and we also have financial boundaries. So, our financial boundaries might be with our employer in terms of what we're agreeing to, in terms of our role and responsibilities, and our hours worked, and our pay and compensation. If you are self-employed or you have a partner who's self-employed, maybe as a side hustle for you, it might be with your clients or with your vendors. It might be your financial boundaries with your partner or your kids or your extended family members. Or if you go on a trip with friends or out to dinner with friends, how do you set limits and boundaries for who is paying for what? And how do you control yourself? If you have difficulty reining in your spending, how do you manage your boundaries with yourself? On the landing page that I shared in the chat, I have a downloadable PDF that is a guide to how to talk about money with your partner. As a therapist, of course, I know that conflicts around money are one of the main reasons that couples seek counseling, and unfortunately, also that they split up. And so we want to learn how to have honest conversations about money, how to be empathic to our partners, money story and their money script and style, and then how to be collaborative and foster financial transparency and trust. And then also with our kids, we want to provide them with financial roots and stability, but we also want to give them wings financially so that they can become independent. Because the research is showing that a lot of us in the sandwich generation are supporting our parents, we're supporting our kids, and we're not saving and investing for our retirement in the ways that we should. And so if we have a kid that's sort of failing to launch or taking longer to cook, that can impact us financially. So I mentioned earlier that we all unconsciously recreate what's familiar until we become aware and we choose something better. So this is an opportunity for you to reflect on what roles and responsibilities and what financial patterns do you keep repeating. This is my program that's going to teach you how to correct that. Through 25 years of practicing as a licensed psychotherapist and counseling tens of thousands of clients, diverse clients, I identified 12 mindsets that lead to holistic success. And we're going to run through these quickly today. They include positivity, detachment, self love, compassion, presence, abundance, vision, awareness, and more. And each of these is a chapter of my book. They're a skill that we can practice and develop, and they are empirically proven to improve mental health, connected relationships, and financial prosperity. So, number one is abundance. I mentioned that my dad grew up in the Great Depression and had a scarcity mindset. Well, an abundance mindset is the opposite. It's the belief that there's more than enough resources for all of us and that we can collaborate with others. We can be generous. We can share our resources and information. We can be creative and innovative and generate money with new ideas. And maybe it's new businesses, maybe it's new services, maybe it's a way to grow within your organization. And as we have that abundant mindset, we also improve our financial consciousness. So we move from the states of being on the left to the states of being on the right, from denial, for those of you who were financially avoidant, to awareness, to consciousness, from blame, blaming others, to really taking responsibility. And so, in order to make these shifts, we need to reflect on our money historically. One of my coaching clients came into a session and she said, Joyce, I had an epiphany. It's my mother's fault that I have ugly shoes. And I laughed and I said, What are you talking about? And she said, my mother drilled into our heads to be very frugal and to not spend a lot of money on shoes or material possessions. And my client's 10-year-old daughter was looking at her closet and she said, Mom, your shoes are so bad. They are so ugly. And you have so many of them. It seems like you've probably spent a lot on these ugly shoes. Wouldn't it make more sense if you just had a few pairs of cute shoes that you felt good in? And my client was like, oh my gosh, this is a money behavior from her family of origin, from her mom's voice in her head that really was not serving her. It's kind of a silly example, but we all have those kind of money glitches, those little ways that we're funny about money, and we want to become conscious of those. And one of the ways that you can do that is to apply mindfulness to money. So, mindfulness obviously is rooted in Zen Buddhism, has been around for thousands of years. It is not religious, it is a philosophy of maintaining moment to moment awareness. If we connect with our breath and our senses, we can learn to quiet our mind chatter and detach from our egos and connect with our deeper, wiser, higher self or our essence. And we can begin to tap into our intuition financially and not just use our mind because our thoughts can play tricks on us financially. There's biases in terms of money biases that are psychological. And so, if we check in with our heart and our gut and also allow those to serve as a compass in making financial decisions, we're going to make better financial decisions. And also, when we calm and regulate our nervous system, we're going to be able to problem solve and think more clearly so that we can spend mindfully rather than from an emotionally reactive space. When we talk about our relationship with money, I'd like you to think about your relationship with money as if it were a person. I know that sounds kind of funny, but if your money life were a person, imagine what they would look like. Imagine what their name might be. And feel free to put it in the chat if you have a name for your financial life. I'll explain this. In this picture, I have Penny on the left, who is my financial life in my 30s. I was ashamed of her. I didn't talk about her with anybody. I expected a whole lot out of her. I used my personal credit cards to float my business payroll. She was exhausted and depleted and really on life support and facing bankruptcy. And today, I think of my financial life as prosperity. And I know that she's a direct reflection of my own self-worth. So I take her really seriously. Um, I love this, Kelly. You said mine is Laverne and she's a lot. That's excellent. I had someone in one of my sessions say that her financial life would be tightwad Teresa and that she would have ugly shoes. So, yeah, we just want to be mindful about how we relate to money and to nurture that relationship and treat money with respect because our financial life is like our health or our mental health or our relationships. It's something that needs to be tended to and nurtured because it affects every other part of our health and wellness. So, as we detach from our ego through mindfulness practices like meditation, breath work, yoga, which is meditation with movement, we connect with our purpose, our deeper self, and we can silence imposter syndrome and perfectionism, which are aspects of ego. And we can embrace our enoughness because, on a spiritual level, we are all worthy and we are all enough and we are all deserving. It's our minds that tell us that somehow we're not enough. And that can shape money problems in a variety of different ways. I love that you're sharing your money names. Thank you for doing that. So now I'm going to have us complete the third poll. So first it's having me share the results. So sorry about that. And then I'm going to relaunch the poll. And this time we're going to complete poll number 3, and I'll explain it. Where do I most often fall on the diva doormat continuum? So I believe that healthy self-esteem is in the middle of a continuum from diva to doormat. And dudes can be divas too. We can call them divos. So divos or divas can be entitled and be overspenders and can sometimes be disrespectful of other people's financial boundaries. The doormat, however, tends to be an under earner, a people pleaser. They may have some financially codependent behaviors where they provide detrimental caretaking at a financial loss for themselves. And healthy self esteem is in the middle where we demonstrate respect for ourselves and others, and we communicate assertively, clearly, diplomatically, and we set healthy limits and boundaries financially in our relationships at home and at work. Wow, you all, there's no, oh, I was just going to say there's no divas in this group, but there's a couple. I love the self-admission. I am a recovering doormat that sometimes veers dangerously into diva. And we can be a diva at home and a doormat at work, or vice versa. And I believe, as a therapist, that we all have self-esteem issues. It's just part of the human condition. And if we continue to work on our healthy self-esteem, that's going to improve our life emotionally, relationally, and financially. So thank you so much. We have a lot of doormats in the room, you all. 52% doormats. That's pretty significant. So definitely opportunity for more assertiveness and healthy, having those money conversations, negotiating, and setting better boundaries. A third of you having healthy self-esteem, which is awesome, and a few divas in the room, which can be a normal response to things that you've been through in your life. But in my book, I provide some strategies for how to recover from diva or doormat and how to cultivate healthy self-esteem. And it's a work in progress, right? None of us is perfect. So we also want you, one of the mindsets is responsibility. I love this quote from Wayne Dyer. I once told my sister that I love the work of Wayne Dyer, and she said, I think he was my driver's ed teacher. And I was like, no, Paula, No, Wayne Dyer was a famous author and philosopher. He wasn't your driver's ed teacher. Well, when we hung up, I Googled Wayne Dyer to prove her wrong. And you know what? He was her driver's ed teacher. It was his first job out of graduate school. He was the school counselor at her high school, and he apparently taught driver's ed as his side hustle. But I went on to read about Wayne, and his mother had mental health issues. His father was an alcoholic, and he grew up in multiple orphanages and foster homes. So in life deals us a different hand of hardships and blessings, and she is not fair in her dealings. And Wayne was dealt a difficult hand. Yet he says we need to take responsibility. So I believe as a therapist, we need to honor how our past has shaped and molded us and impacted us and wrap ourselves with self-compassion. And then we need to take the reins for our life and take responsibility because we are the only ones who can change our life. So we're not just the author of our money story, or I'm sorry, we're not just the protagonist or the star of our money story. We can also be the author. And that involves shifting from an external locus of control, is what they call it in psychology, where if we have an external locus of control, we think that the government, the economy, our employer, they determine our financial health. But if we have an internal locus of control, we feel agency. We feel like we can make change by improving our financial literacy, by being more assertive, being more informed, etc. This is one of my wheel exercises. I have 16 in the book, and there are three in your mini workbook that is in your landing page. So each spoke of the wheel is a different aspect of your financial health. If you're doing well in a certain area, you put a dot toward the outside of the wheel. If it's an area of needed growth or improvement or attention, you put a dot toward the inside of the wheel. And then when you're done, you connect the dots and you identify your three biggest dents in the wheel. And then in the worksheet, it teaches you how to create an action plan and a system of accountability. So this is something that you could do once a year, once a quarter. You could do it together with your partner, or maybe you have a friend and both of you want to work on your financial health and you want to be accountability partners and talk once a week or once a month and check in on how you're doing working on your progress. We mentioned that self-worth leads to net worth. And so self-love is one of the mindsets that we need to learn in order to demonstrate and create, cultivate greater financial health. So when we practice self-love or self-care, we are setting the tone for all of our other relationships. When people see that we take care of ourselves, we exercise, we get enough sleep, we have proper nutrition, we are moderating our substance use, we are taking time for our hobbies. When we are healthy in those ways, it actually increases our financial health as well. So we want to make sure that we are taking care of ourselves. This is my favorite wheel exercise. And if you attend my future webinar, Surviving to Thriving, we're going to dive into this a little more closely. If you're going to complete one wheel exercise, I would encourage you to complete this one. It is my favorite. So, and it's a great way to assess areas of needed improvement. The higher our stressors are, the more self-care and the more support we need. And support is positively correlated with improved financial health. On the slide, I want you to look. These are some of the barriers to receiving greater support. And so I want you to look at that and ask yourself, what keeps me from asking for help in my life, whether it's at work, at home, emotionally, or maybe with my finances, and work to transcend these challenges and open yourself up to receiving. I think each of us should have a unofficial financial board of advisors. So for me, I have my CPA who helps me with my taxes and various aspects of my business and financial planning. I have my financial advisor, and I make sure that my financial advisor and my accountant and I meet, and my husband meet once a year together to make sure we're all on the same page. You might have an attorney that helps you, whether it's your real estate attorney or your divorce attorney or another attorney in your life that helps protect you financially. And then you might have a therapist or coach who specializes in money mindset, and you're working on your financial psychology of money and that work. I also want you to know that there are free and anonymous 12-step programs to help you with your money issues. So there's Gamblers Anonymous, Under Earners Anonymous, Spenders Anonymous, etc. These meetings are free. They are in person or even online. So definitely check those out if you are dealing with one of those challenges. This is the support network wheel. It's similar to the other wheels, except this one has little lines at the end of each spoke where you write the names of the people in your support network who provide you with that type of support. So, who helps you with your emotional support, your career support, your finances? Who are your friends? Who's your family or your chosen family? Who provides you with that connection? Who helps you with spiritual support? And again, you evaluate how supported you feel in each area. If it's you're doing great, it's toward the outside of the wheel. If it's an area of needed growth, toward the inside of the wheel. And then you assess your support network like a garden. You might need to plant seeds for new relationships. You might need to nurture the ones that you have. You might need to utilize your support network more by asking for help. And you may need to weed out toxic relationships. I've mentioned cognitive behavioral therapy a couple of times, and CBT asserts that our thoughts precede our emotions and behaviors. And I'm going to tell you a funny story that exemplifies this. Several years ago, I was at a holiday party and I saw my friend Randy, and he asked me how my book was coming along. I had been writing a book for 10 years and it still wasn't published. And I said, "Oh, Randy, I put it on the back burner again. I just got busy with other stuff and I had a lot of rejection from publishers. So I've kind of given up on it for now." And he said, "Oh man, you need to talk to my monk." And I said, "Your monk?" And he said, "Yeah, my Buddhist monk. He's one of the smartest people I know. I think he could help you." So, because I practice what I preach and I receive all the support I can get, I scheduled a consultation with Randy's monk, not knowing what to expect. And he was not the Tibetan looking monk I was imagining. He was kind of a regular guy in a black shirt and black pants. But I knew right away, whoa, this guy was smart. He was talking about where science meets spirituality and drawing these little diagrams on small pieces of paper. And I was getting excited. He asked me why I was there, and I told him about my book and all the rejection and, how frustrating the whole process had been. And he said, "Stop. I have your answer." And I was like, "Oh my gosh," my heart was beating. And he wrote something on a little piece of paper and he handed it to me, and it said this. I was kind of upset. I said, "Oh my goodness, are you being serious?" And he said, "Absolutely. Weaken the fiction. WTF. Weaken the fiction. All this BS, all these rationalizations, all these excuses. You and 100% you are in your own way." So I started using a technique from Adlerian psychology, which is called acting as if. And you basically act like you've already achieved your goals. So I walked around my house and I said, "I am an internationally published author and global speaker, like my dear friend, Brene Brown." My best friend accused me of psychotic optimism. She's also a therapist, but she joined in and would leave me voicemails saying, I can't wait for your book tour. And you know what? After a few days of this, I called my agent and I said, if I don't have a book deal in 30 days, I'm going to self publish. Well, she got me a book deal with the publisher of Brene Brown. So we have to believe something is possible in order for it not to be impossible. And you know what? This was my book tour. Do you believe me? No, my book was published during the pandemic, and my book tour was very modest. So I went to Madame Tussauds Wax Museum and I acted as if I had the book tour of my dreams. And so I talked with my spiritual advisor, the Dalai Lama. I met with Oprah and saw my BFF, RuPaul. When we practice this strategy, we actually expand our thinking in terms of what is available to us because we all set ceilings with self-limiting beliefs. So I want you to start acting as if. I'm now going to launch one of our last polls. We've got about 8 minutes left here. And I want you to complete number 5, I believe it is. Let's look at this. No, number 4. Which is preventing me from achieving greater financial prosperity? And this is multiple choice, so you can choose as many as you'd like. Is it your inner saboteur? Is it imposter syndrome or perfectionism? Is it some of your financial shame or financial anxiety getting in the way? Is it you not being assertive or setting healthy money boundaries? And if it's something else, feel free to pop that in the chat as well. So thank you so much for completing that. It's looking like across the board, you are selecting all of these options to varying degrees. And so I'm going to go ahead and end the poll and share the results. So we can see that if you scroll down, financial shame and financial anxiety was really high at 50%, followed by really all of the others, all at 39%. So definitely some room for improvement for you all to work on your psychology of money. So as we care about ourselves and we have support, we can start to negotiate. And everything is negotiable, not just your pay or your salary, but also benefits, title, time off. These are all things that you can begin to negotiate and talk about. Also, at home, you can negotiate if you're purchasing a car or leasing a car. You can practice your negotiation skills, even at regular department stores. I was buying patio furniture from a box store and I it was expensive. It was a big investment. And I asked the manager if he was offering if that was the best he could do, if that was the best price he could do. And he came down a bit. And then I asked him if he could throw in delivery and the $400 covers that went with the set. And he said, sure, no problem. That saved me over $1,000. And it was just asking. And sometimes my friends are like, I didn't know you could do that. Or another time we were buying some furniture and bought several pieces. And I asked if they could throw an inexpensive mirror in for free. And they said, sure. So all we have to do is ask, and we can do so in a kind, respectful way. It doesn't have to be aggressive, but just thinking out of the box and advocating for ourselves. So everything that we have talked about today, each of these mindsets, fosters resilience mentally, emotionally, and financially. And we want to understand that in life, progress isn't linear and we always have setbacks, financially and otherwise. And what's important is that we move through the challenges and we persevere. I mentioned that yoga is a mindfulness practice. Does anybody know what this pose is called in yoga? You can put it in the chat. For many years, I told myself, I can't do, oh, wow, you've got the Sanskrit name. That's very impressive. It's either crow or I was told frog because the knees are outside of the arms. But it's a really difficult arm balancing pose. And for years, I told myself, I can't do crow pose. And then I thought, oh my goodness, is that my inner saboteur setting my own ceilings? So I did it one arm at a time. I faked it with my feet still on the ground. And then I face planted 1,000 times. But you know what? I finally did it. And that's me. I was so excited. Thank you so much. Now, that picture was taken super quickly, but I did it. So that's what resilience is. It's we breathe through challenges. We know that the moment will pass. And in the end, we're going to be stronger, more balanced, more flexible, and more resilient. So I'm going to launch the last poll here. And this is number 5. And I want to hear the training results. What are you going to do differently based on today? And I'm sharing here, I also have the link to my book if you're interested in working my program. Here is the link. I love hot yoga too, Kara. This is the link to my book on Amazon, but it's also sold in other places. There's an accompanying workbook, and I also have a digital course that's on the landing page that I shared before. And if you would please be so kind as to give me feedback, this helps me book other talks with other organizations. So I just popped that survey link, it's from Talkadot, into the chat. And if you would please take a second for that, I will explain the poll results. So I'm super excited about this. Yay, what an awesome group. You are really going to take all of these and move forward with them. So 47% of you wanting to work the financial mindset fix program. Maybe you could do that together at work. If you have a book club, I'd be happy to come and say hi. So I'm so happy to see that you're working on all of these. I'm going to just share the results again. You might have to scroll down to number 5. And thank you so much again for inviting me to present and for completing that link. And thank you, Jane, for putting the resources in there again. And as we close up, I just want to leave you with my personal definition of success, which is to live life openly, authentically, and lovingly in alignment with the highest good of yourself and others to the greatest extent possible. So this presentation is not about greed or excess or materialism. It's about becoming your best self and lifting others up. And when we have more, we can help more. And if you have any questions that you weren't able to ask, or if I can be of service to you, or if you know an organization that would like to book me to keynote or corporate train, these are my contact handles. If you want to direct message me, or I would love Instagram love or to connect on LinkedIn. So thank you so much. I see some nice comments in the chat and some other great resources from Jane. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And Jane, if you want to wrap us up in the last minute, that would be great.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Joyce. Really great, as always, to hear your wisdom and knowledge around psychology of money. I hope you guys really enjoyed it. We did put some links into additional resources in Joyce's webinar in May. So thank you all for joining us. I did record the session, so it will be posted online. We'll let you guys know. Thank you all. Have a great day.